Hey everyone, this is Sandeep back with another video. And in this video, I'm going to start with a new series related to Spring. I'm going to create a series of, so many videos. So this will be a long series. I know Spring and Spring Boot is a Java technology. It's use widely the market, for creating enterprise application. So if you learn Spring and Spring Boot, I think there will be a lot of opportunities which will get open for you to work in a good organization. So this series is going to have a lot of practical examples, some theory, and there will be some projects which we are going to work on. So let's jump into the videos. Today I'm going to talk about two important topics which are really important. So I'm not going to talk about Spring, what is Spring Boot, and the definition of Spring and all those things. So we are directly going to jump into the important topics. We will see everything in practical way, hands-on way, right? So today in this video, I'm going to cover two important topics related to Spring. Before we jump into the Spring, these two topics are really important and they are called, maybe I can start writing, using this pad. So today we are going to talk about two important topics. The first one is the inversion of control. So this is the first topic, I would say. And the second one is the, or maybe I can write in cursive, right? Dependency injection. So these are very, very important topics, you need to understand before we jump and talk about Spring. So I'm not going to jump into the definition of these things. Let's start with a practical example first, and probably then I'm going to define these topics maybe in a definition way. So dependency injection, maybe it's looking okay. So let me add a new page here. Probably I'll give you the example. So we're going to create a Java project and we are going to understand with example these two topics. So say suppose, I will take the real world example. Say suppose you have a mobile phone, right? So I'll just try to create a mobile phone here, maybe like something like this, and maybe there will be a screen like this, and we're going to have different buttons here, right? So I'm just going to make something like boxes here. Okay, and in our mobile phone, right, we have something called a SIM card, right? So there is a SIM slot here and you can have a SIM card here. So nowadays, a mobile can have multiple SIM cards, right? So I can have a SIM card where, I can use a Vodafone network. I can have a SIM card of Geo also, right? So I can say my mobile has a dependency on the SIM card, right? Where, I can have a Vodafone SIM card, I can have a Geo SIM card. And we use our SIM card for two different actions, right? First one is for, calling. This is really important. And the other important thing is, for data, right? For data purpose. If I want to use internet, right? If I want to watch videos or have a chat with someone, right? We can use the data. So these are two important features, which any SIM provider or any network provider, they provide us calling and data. So you can see some of the Java classes, which might be coming into your mind here. So we can have a mobile class, and then we can have a Vodafone SIM, and we can have a Geo SIM, and we can create all those SIM classes into our mobile class, something like that. So we're going to create a new Java project, and we're going to create all these classes, and then we will see how uh, we can write all of this idea, basically whatever idea I've drawn here into Java, right? So let's jump into the code editor. So let me open my IntelliJ IDEA, okay? And let's create a new Java project. And let's try to implement this idea. So I'm going to create a new Java project. Click on next. I'm using IntelliJ. You can use anything, any code editor of your choice. I'm going to name this project as communication. You can name whatever you want. Okay. So now inside this communication, I'm going to have create first one class basically. Okay, don't need this. So I'll create a Java class called, maybe we'll create a mobile class, and this is our main application class, I would say, mobile. And inside this mobile, I'm going to have main method. So let's put some main method here, right? And this main method is going to, so mobile is going to have like this idea, right? The entire idea. A mobile can have a Vodafone SIM, can have a Geo SIM, right? So we have created a mobile class, right? And our mobile class is going to have a Vodafone SIM and a Geo SIM. And each SIM is going to have two different functions, I would say, the calling and the data. So let's create the SIMs also, right? So I'm going to create two different classes. I'm not going to name this, I'm just going to name it in a simpler way called Vodafone.java. And this Vodafone.java is going to have two different public methods. So first one will be public void calling. And I'm going to just put the S out here where I will say calling using Vodafone. And there will be another method I'm going to put inside this public void data. So I'm going to say S out data or surfing. Let's say surfing using Vodafone. Because this is my Vodafone SIM, right? So I have two different method calling and data. I'm going to save this one. Let's create another class. Say I'll go with Geo this time. So we can use any SIM, in India, or if you're watching this video outside India, right? There are like different service providers here. So I'm just going to copy and paste just to save some time, right? So this is also going to have the same method, right? So I have the calling and I have the data, but here I'm going to say calling using Geo and data or surfing using Geo. Now, I'll come back to my mobile class, right? So say suppose I want to use a Vodafone SIM, right? So I need to create the class, I need to create the object of Vodafone here, right? So I'm going to say sim1 is equals to new Vodafone. And then I can say sim1 dot calling, and then I can say sim1 dot data. So if I need any SIM card, right? So look at this statement, I'm creating the objects of those SIM card directly inside my mobile. Okay, so Vodafone sim1 equals to new Vodafone and calling and data. Let's run this application and let's see what output we are getting. So you see here, right? We are getting calling using Vodafone, we are getting surfing using Vodafone. So the expected output, right? So now if you look at this class, this mobile class, it has a dependency. I mean, if you look at the object, dependency means, right, take the family, inside a family, we have different family members. Like similarly, our mobile class is having a dependency on the SIM card. So if there is no SIM card, right? So right now I have a Vodafone SIM card here. I have created the object of Vodafone SIM card. So I can say mobile needs a SIM card for, calling and data. And obviously we need a SIM card. But when we create object using new Vodafone, right, or a new keyword, so basically we have a hard dependency, I would say. We are creating a hard dependency on this particular object in our class. Similarly, say suppose I want to change the sim now, right? So maybe I want to use the another sim. I need to create another object. Maybe I need to create a geo object, and this will be my sim2, and I'm going to say new geo, and then I can say sim2 dot calling and sim2 dot data. So in both the cases, right, I have a dependency. My mobile has a dependency on the Vodafone and the Geo. So so let's talk about the first concept which I was talking about, right? The inversion of control. So in case of, okay, I did a mistake here. In a case, what is inversion of control basically? So in case of inversion of control, so maybe I can type, add a new page and define this term here. So the first concept which is called IOC, which is called inversion of control. So in case of inversion of control, what we do basically, so we outsource. Let's try to define this. We outsource or delegate, okay, the construction, and management. So both the cases, right? construction and management of objects to an object factory. Okay. So outsource or delegate the construction and management of objects to an object factory. So instead of creating this Vodafone object, instead of creating this geo object directly inside the mobile class, what is the idea basically? So I'm just going to maybe let me see if I can copy this page, or maybe I'll draw it again, right? So I'm going to draw it again. So just add a new page. And here I have a mobile, right? So this is my mobile, and this is my screen, and these are all my buttons, right? And this is my slot, right? So instead of having it's the SIM cards directly created inside my mobile, I'm going to give that responsibility to someone else. You think like, some other object, right? Maybe I'm going to call that object as a SIM provider. Now you must be thinking, what is the advantage of that? And giving that responsibility to someone else. I'll give you a very simple example. Say suppose you want to eat pizza now, right? Now you have two options, right? You can create the pizza by yourself. So you need to go and arrange all the ingredients, right? You need to find out the recipe, and then you can create the pizza. But instead of that, you can give that responsibility, or you can delegate that part to someone else, like a pizza shop. You can just give a call to the pizza shop, and they can deliver the pizza to you. So in that case, you're not dependent on yourself for creating the pizza. Similarly, in our case, the mobile phone, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to delegate the SIM creation responsibility to someone else, like a SIM provider. Okay, I'll give you the input, right? So I'll give you some input. I want maybe like Vodafone SIM. So you do one thing, I want the Vodafone SIM, create the Vodafone SIM for me and give it back to me. So it's going to give me the Vodafone SIM. So instead of directly creating these objects here, if you see here, right, I'm going to delegate that responsibility to someone else. So let's implement the similar functionality. So maybe I'm going to create a new project for that. I'm going to copy and paste some of the things from here. So let's have a new project, new Java project, and that will be, I'm going to call it communication using factory, something like that. Not factory, should be a factory. Okay. I want to open a new window so that I can just copy and paste things from there. So I'll switch back to that window where I have the communication, and I'm just going to copy and paste all of these classes because I'll need these classes. So I'm just going to copy just to save time and paste it here. So refactor maybe. Okay. So now I have a mobile, right? So now what I'm going to do first, so let me give you the idea, what idea I'm trying to implement here in terms of Java classes. So I'm going to add a new page. So we have a mobile class, right? Or a mobile object, I would say. Now, obviously, mobile needs something called a SIM, right? A SIM object, right? So instead of creating this SIM object by myself, I'm going to delegate this responsibility to a factory. So maybe I just make it small, So there will be a SIM factory. So there will be an object which I'm going to create called SIM factory. Now SIM factory will help me create this SIM object, right? And I'm going to have two different SIM objects right here. One will be the Vodafone, right? I can have a Vodafone SIM. So there will be a Vodafone SIM, and there will be a Geo SIM also, right? Something like this. And both of this, they're going to have a common interface called SIM. So this is the idea I'm going to implement here, right? Because SIM factory is going to have a SIM which is going to create either a Vodafone SIM or Geo SIM, and it's going to give me back that same object. So this is the idea what I'm trying to implement. So instead of mobile creating the sim object directly, we are delegating that responsibility to a sim factory, which is creating the sim object. This is the idea, right? Either a Vodafone sim or a Geo sim. I don't have a habit of drawing like this, so some space constraint, I need to learn it. So that's okay. So let's move on. Now I'm going to create a new interface. So let's create a new Java class. I'm just going to call this a sim. And this sim is going to have these two methods, right? I'm just going to copy and paste these two methods, but I don't need to have a body, right? So I'm going to remove the body part. So each of my sim is going to implement this interface, implements sim, okay? And Geo is also going to implements the sim interface. So this is the idea, right? So I've created that right hand side part. Now I'm going to create another object called a sim provider. So think like this is your pizza provider, right? Same idea. I'm going to implement here. And this is going to have a public method which is going to return me the sim object. So I'm going to say get sim. There will be a method get sim. And I'm going to pass some value here, maybe like sim type. So I'll say the type or name of the provider, right? So I need to say string name, not string, something like this. Okay. And here, either I can use if condition for now because I don't have a lot of objects. I'm just going to check if name is equals to, say, suppose Vodafone. So I'm going to return new Vodafone. Else, I'm going to check if name is equals to maybe Geo. I'm going to return new GeoSim. See that? So I've created a separate class called sim provider. Think like this is that pizza provider. Now mobile or you want to eat the pizza, right? So now you're not going to create the sim directly. You're just going to have a sim provider created here. So I'll say this as a provider is equals to new sim provider. And you're going to say, I want to create sim1, right? So I'm going to use sim interface now. So say suppose I want Vodafone sim, so that will be my sim1. So I can say provider dot get sim and I'll pass Vodafone here. And now I can say sim1 dot calling and sim1 dot data. I'm going to save it. Now if I run this, okay, missing return statement, where I'm missing the return statement in sim provider. So I need to go back to my sim provider class, return new geo. Okay, so I need to have some return null if I don't have anything to return, right? So let's run it again. See that? Calling using Vodafone, surfing using Vodafone. I can change it. Maybe I want to use a GeoSim here, right? I can run it again just to show you. You see that calling using Geo, surfing using Geo. Now, I'm still using the new here, and later on, when we will talk about Spring, when we get into the depth of the Spring, even you're never going to write this new keyword. We are going to create all of these objects using this idea of inversion of control, right? So now I have a dependency. So let me talk about the dependency injection also, right? So now so inversion of control is nothing but outsource or delegate the construction and management of object to object factory. That's what I did here, right? So I took this I created a sim provider. Now sim provider is responsible for creating different sim object, right? So I don't have dependency directly on the sim, but on the provider. Like you want to eat pizza, you don't have a dependency on yourself to make the pizza. You can have it delegated to a pizza shop or pizza provider. Same thing, right? And so we have a dependency on sim, right? We have a dependency on sim, and that dependency is getting injected I'm just talking about dependency injection using a Spring provider object. So inversion of control is like delegating construction and management of object to object factory, in our case sim provider, and dependency injection means that dependency of sim is getting injected by a sim provider. So these two things, they're very much related to each other. I know it's difficult to understand as a beginner why we are doing this. Why can't we create the sim object directly inside this class instead of creating this sim provider? So again, remember that example of creating a pizza, right? So instead you create the pizza, you're delegating that responsibility to a pizza shop because they are the expert. So think in the similar term. The SIM provider is expert in creating the SIM card for you. That's what we are trying to do here. And this is the idea which we are going to use or implement in Spring and Spring Boot so many times. And we are going to see how. So this SIM provider class, you don't need to create by yourself this factory, right? SIM provider or SIM factory, you don't need to create by yourself. Spring provides all of these things out of the box, and we're going to see how we can create all of this object using Spring in the next part of the video. I hope you understood these two important concepts. This can be asked in the interviews also of the Spring. So I have given you a definition also. Once again, I'm just going to quickly recap. What is inversion of control? It's outsource or delegate the construction and management of object to an object factory. Dependency injection is nothing but injecting a dependency, but that dependency has been injected by someone else. So that in our case, it's a factory, right? So with that, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to see you in the next video. I hope you understood this two concept. And from the next part of the video, we are going to jump into the Spring. We're going to create the Spring project, and we will see how we can create all of these dependencies, how we can use Spring IOC container as a factory for creating and injecting all of these different objects. So with that, I'm going to stop here. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, you take care and goodbye.